The truth of success. Hey everybody, it's Mitch with Elevated Business, and we have Brett with Execom in the studio today. Lots of amazing nuggets of gold coming your way, so let's get at it. I'm Mitch Hardington, your guide to elevated business. In this video series, we dive deep into the authentic journeys of business owners who've paved their way to greatness. Get ready to uncover their secrets that shape the remarkable world of business. Well, Brett, I'm super excited you're here today. I'm honored you took some time out of your day to come chat with me.
Excited to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about success here first, but before we kind of dive into what you think success is, do you mind just giving the audience a little bit of background into kind of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I've founded several companies, some that have been successful, some that have not been successful. And I'm sure that in the course of our conversation today, we'll dive into some of the learnings that come out of those valuable failures. But I guess really where I'm at now is that I've done enough of my own companies that I've gotten good at helping other people do theirs. So my current company, Execom, which I started at the beginning of the year, is now helping, I think, 23 other startups with getting their businesses brought to life. So it's a ton of fun. I think for just having variety and being able to do lots of things simultaneously, this has been the best thing that I've ever done. So I guess maybe I should call myself a multipreneur, because I often end up involved in more than one venture at a time.
That's awesome.
So I'm hoping maybe you can give me insight today on what the hell it is that makes somebody have the belief, like I do, that one business isn't enough and let's go and do 10.
Yeah.
And have a handful of them happening simultaneously.
You know what, I'd love to potentially be able to teach you something, but I've become a big believer in the world that it's always like give and take, right? You'll learn something from me, I learn something from you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what creates the best relationships, both professional and personal. Always trying to give more than you take.
Yeah, I definitely, as a dad, have really embraced that. And I think in business too, there's a lot of folks that I come across who it's not really clear exactly what the right way to engage is, but if there are things that I can get going immediately that just give them some free advisory, or where I can introduce them to folks that are going to be helpful, I find that it always comes back. And not necessarily in the form of revenue or business results for me, but just sometimes the enjoyment of seeing them figure it out or connect those dots, and then it turns into something that they were scratching their head on when they were coming to me.
I love that, just seeing the joy in other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So let's dive into some kind of our first topic around success. Okay. So you kind of alluded to, you've had a lot of success, you've had some failure. You've founded a few companies yourself. You're now helping startups kind of start their own. If you had to take the word success over your journey in entrepreneurship, how would you define it?
Success for me is doing what I want to be doing while I'm doing it. Oh. So I think that's a convoluted way of saying just following what you care about and taking what comes along the way. I think for a lot of the things that I did early in my career, when I finished university, I had already done 2 startups. One that was a pretty quick success, which made me have the mistaken belief that I was gifted and whatever I touched was going to turn to gold. Because the second one that I started became a pretty spectacular failure after maybe a year and a half. And I'll say that there was a lot more value that has paid off throughout the rest of my career from that failure than the one that was kind of a quick and early win. And so from that failure, I had to get a damn job. I didn't have the means to go and start another business. So I went and worked in sales, and I found fairly early on that some of the companies and some of the corporate cultures that are around, for me at least, weren't inspiring. And I think there's there's ways to make anything work. I mean, I think as humans we're resilient. We can literally adapt to just about anything, and all sorts of difficult circumstances can become normal to us. So just for me, having that sense that, okay, maybe this isn't the best place for me to be and I should think about how I can work my way out of here, was always a factor early in my career. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that doing the things that are sometimes the hard things and the things that don't necessarily make a lot of sense financially, but that we're really driven towards and that we just would want to wake up and do that every day. If we can stick to that long enough that it starts to make us some money, it's so worth it. And there's, I don't know whose quote this is, but it was like, if you want to be a writer, write. If you want to be a football player, play football. And I think in business it's a little trickier because there's so many different kinds of businesses we can do. So it's not enough to say if you want to be an entrepreneur, just start a business. Although I think even if you just started a business that someone from off of the street said, hey, make me an ice cream parlor, you'd get value out of that. Even if you have no passion for ice cream, the process of creating it and figuring out how to source your ingredients and hire a few people to scoop the ice cream, it's like you can take that to any business that you do after that. So I am going on at length here, and I want to check in that I'm answering the actual question.
No, you are. You've already dropped some pretty, some pretty cool, some hints in there. So just to kind of summarize, you said it's like getting up and doing what you want to do every day. Like that's super important to you.
Yeah.
And that's what defines your success.
Yeah, I think if you are doing something that you would do for free, and you're good at it, and you commit to it for long enough, you cannot not make money at it. People will literally come up to you and like ask you to give them some of whatever it is that you're making or doing, and to take their money in exchange for it. And so it's hard. I mean, I think that's the double edge to that sword, is that it's not easy. There's no guarantee that there's no guarantee that it's going to be quick. So to do things that are hard for a prolonged period of time, in my opinion, is what separates entrepreneurs from everybody else. There are brilliant, talented business people who work in corporations. They're not entrepreneurs. If you take them out of that corporation and you ask them to build something with very limited resources and very limited information and no certainty as to whether or not it's going to work, I'd say you would probably struggle to find very many of them who don't give up in a reasonably short period of time. So I don't know if I could summarize that by saying that being an entrepreneur requires you to be willing to go through some tough and unpredictable stuff and keep doing it and just like take those lumps over and over. So I think this is probably another piece that contributes to my personal definition of success, and it's that in addition to doing those things that I'm interested in and I'm passionate about and maybe don't make any money, having some that suck in terms of like the hardship that they entail is also helpful. Again, in the context of entrepreneurship, I started mountain sports, climbing, ice climbing, rock climbing, mountaineering as a teen, and there's a lot of suffering that comes with those sports. Just being in the Canadian Rockies, half the year it's bloody cold. Doing some of the bigger climbs that I probably shouldn't have been attempting as a teen taught me that in order to get to some of the places that we desire, we're gonna have to really suffer along the way, but that it's worth it. So that's something that, again, later in life it dawned on me that some of these early learnings that I wasn't conscious of as I was learning them in my early days as a climber, but that formed that in me, that made me aware that, okay, this sucks right now, but I know if I keep doing it, I'm gonna get to that summit, or I'm gonna get over there where the sun's shining and I'll be warm again.
Yeah.
And that happens in business. And I think just it happens in life, you know, relationships. I don't want to go off on a tangent with this, but I'm happily married. It'll be 14 years in the fall. I mean, we've gone through plenty of tough times, and I think that willingness to just come back for more is a marriage saver. So I don't know, I'm not a masochist, but I'm not afraid to suffer. I'm not afraid to go deep into the suck, and it pays off.
Would you say it's fair to assume that success kind of bleeds in through both? Like if you're successful in one place because you're doing what you love and you love what you do, that'll bleed into your home and vice versa?
Man, that's an awesome question. And a tough one to answer, because in my own frame of reference, in my family growing up, my dad was an entrepreneur and was good at it, which was also a double-edged sword because he wasn't around a lot as a result of that. And I think he struggled certainly with finding that balance that could make him a success both as a husband and father, but also as an entrepreneur and a provider. And I studied that my whole early life, like trying to pick up the cues of, because it didn't work. My parents ended up divorced. They stayed very amicable, and we had a lot of function for a family that was divorced. But I guess looking at my favorite example is physical well-being and business performance. So people who are very diligently taking care of their bodies often perform better as entrepreneurs or other business professionals. So I'm a huge believer that there is this transference of success or transference of wellness that comes from being exceptional physically, mentally, emotionally, and then having that carry across. I'm still not certain though around just personal life and some of these things that we can look at and say, all right, if you're working 100 hours a week trying to build something with your business and you're rarely around to see your loved ones, is that success? And I don't want to say that it is or it isn't. I'll say this. I think that it's necessary evil with almost any company that I've started or seen my partners or colleagues start, but that it should be done with the belief or with the knowledge that that's not sustainable. So if you value that family and you value that spouse, you should probably try to mitigate those 100-hour weeks as early in your journey as possible, because they might not be there if you don't. So I don't know if I really answered the question, but
you totally did. That was some awesome insight. Because like in entrepreneurship, sometimes it's just an evil, right? You just have to, you got to put the time in, right? But it's making sure that, for me, it's having those conversations with your loved ones of kind of setting expectations of, hey, these are some things that might happen, or hey, it's going to be a busy week, but reaffirming that this isn't going to be our life. Right? And it's like short-term pain for long-term gain, and making sure that maybe it all comes down to communication. I'm just kind of spitballing that right now, just being honest and open.
Yeah, and honest and open with yourself. Because I think that's the one that I personally struggled with a lot early in my career and as an entrepreneur in my first few ventures, where that sense of adventure and that willingness to take on a big challenge is probably necessary to get the thing started. But as it's moving in a direction where you can probably start hiring people and doing things that get you out of those 100-hour weeks, I think it's a game of self-awareness to be able to look at what you're doing and say, okay, other people can do this too. Like, I don't need to be immersed in every single product design meeting that goes on. I don't need to be in every sales transaction that's taking place. So maybe it's the willingness to delegate, or just having that comfort level with yourself that it's going to be maybe a little uncomfortable letting go of some stuff, but that whether you like it or not, you have to do it. Like I had to do it. And the results that I've had by not letting go have been big problems with family, just problems with health and wellness, gaining a bunch of weight, eating terribly, and also with the business outcomes where having a burnout is not good for your productivity as a business person. So those things I think drive it home, whether we believe it or embrace it or not. It's like we will get it. It'll happen to us. We'll get that lesson.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, episode 1 has been awesome with you. I'm so glad that you're here. We've got 3 more kind of topics we're going to dive into. So, nothing but great things so far. I'm sure that the audience is loving being a part of this. So, thank you for that. But just before we kind of end this first part, if people wanted to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Brett, B-R-E-T-T at Execom, that's execom.ca, is the best email to reach me at.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for spending your time here with us. Looking forward to seeing you guys on the next episode as we continue to unpack some of these amazing experiences that Brett is bringing to the table. Until next time. That's a wrap for today's journey into elevated business. I'm Mitch Hardington, urging you to turn inspirations into actions. Join me next time as we continue exploring the real stories of entrepreneurs. Remember, the best is yet to come.